talking points on the occupation. What is Occupy Providence about? There are other people who are better qualified to talk about Occupy Providence. They're up to very concrete things, including interactions with RIPTA and interactions with labor and promoting libraries. I don't want to speak on those because I'm not the best to speak on that. Shout out to...
Will you talk to him?
No, never mind. Oakland, how do we feel about Oakland, people? What happened out there?
Fucked up. You guys want to play more? Okay.
And how do we feel about the fact that the police commissioner in Rhode Island said he was not going to act forcibly and going to operate through court injunctions to handle the situation in Occupy Providence? Oh, and you know what else? Mayor Cianci today on the radio was like, it's not going to be the police commissioner. It's not going to be Mayor Tavares who gets Occupy Providence out of Burnside Park. It's going to be Chief Meteorologist Steve Cascione. Tell us about the forecast, Steve. And we've got some ugly weather. So they think the weather's going to get people out of Burnside Park this weekend. What do we think about that?
Hell no! We won't go! Hell no! We won't go! Hell no! We won't go! Hell no! We won't go!
So it's things like that public statement that the occupiers in Burnside Park will not be forcibly removed that make me proud to be a Rhode Islander. And it's things like the costume jewelry we used to make in Rhode Island and still make to some degree that makes me proud to be a Rhode Islander, and Save the Bay efforts to restore oyster beds and keep the water clean and things like that. Okay, I discovered Occupy Wall Street when I got invited to the first day by some guy I never even met on Facebook. I looked at the page. They had a giant list of things to vote for the one demand of the occupation movement. And I voted to end corporate personhood that gives corporations the same constitutional rights as a person. I picked up that idea by watching The Corporation, a movie, a documentary. That one demand idea disappeared pretty quick, and the idea was tossed around that occupiers don't know what they want, they don't know what the movement is, they can't specify their demands, they're just protesting what is going on here. There's a nice photo circulating the internet of a lady with a sign that says, "Don't confuse the complexity of this movement with chaos. It is complicated stuff. We don't need to understand. We do need to understand it. It can't be summed up in one demand. It can't be summed up in several demands. We are succeeding insofar as we have the conversation moving." And I got that idea from a fella named Jonathan Smucker, who was on the Diane Rehm show on NPR earlier this week. He's a Rhode Islander who's been occupying in New York from the beginning, volunteering. And he said the goal of populist movements is not to make specific changes, it's to improve the quality of conversation in the country. So we are getting the conversation moving, and that's my demand, keep the conversation going. Another way I can present the problem of the complexity of this situation is to say, you don't say a plaid shirt doesn't have a pattern just because there's so many colors going in different directions. There is a lot going on here, and everyone needs to figure out what is going on. Some of the specific things that are some of the threats involved in this plaid that is the occupation movement. Politicians are bought and sold. That is a fact. For the people, he says for cheap. Okay. Listen to how people respond to you. That's how conversations happen. There's a fella in North Carolina, his Pope in North Carolina is buying elections. He's just dumping tons of money into elections. He's raising Republican seats, and this is not a Republican or Democrat movement. It is nonpartisan. But this fella is taking money to advance an agenda. Am I going on too long? Do this. Is it a this? Okay. No. I'm going to practice. I'm almost done here. Hear me out. You'll be psyched. So our Pope's buying and selling North Carolina. We elect representatives, but corporations pay for the legislation. Give me more of this if it's Glass-Steagall. People need to. You can look it up on Wikipedia. You can look it up on NPR.
Fuck yeah, Glass-Steagall.
Glass-Steagall was instituted post-Depression. It prevented banks from making risky investments with depositors' money. Investment banks did investments. We don't have that anymore. The bank where you put your paycheck risks your money. They go to Vegas with it. Derivative trade is largely why we are in this mess. It's behind the mortgage crisis. It's behind the collapse of the Icelandic economy. It's behind the collapse of the Greek economy. Goldman Sachs made the deal with the Greeks, those nice people trying to save their country. It was a derivative deal, and it defrauded the EU, and the entire EU is paying for it right now. Derivative trading is at the heart of the mortgage crisis. Derivatives are like these crazy little contracts. They're like an insurance policy that if you win money, you're going to make money, and if you lose money, you're going to make money. Credit default swaps, they're like, you can trade these little contracts you make on other deals, and they're meaningless. And the overall value of derivative trades in the world right now is, I hesitate to say, I'm going to look this up, it's in the trillions, and it's more than the gross, it's like 20 times more than the gross domestic product of the world right now. Because bankers have bought politicians to rewrite laws, to make deals that are insolvent, and everybody is paying for it. Few more things. JP Morgan makes money every time another person signs up for food stamps. They facilitate EBT cards. It's really messed up. Also, legislators have gotten in cahoots with private. All right, I'm going to call it quits there. I can't recall that thought. Private immigrant prisons. When illegal immigrants are hauled off to the can, it's a private organization that gets $200 a night, and they're in contract with border states because legislators, corporations with private interests have bought that legislation. The movement is specific, and I encourage everyone to read and discuss these things.
Revolution!
Thank you. Thanks for everybody. This is our last song.